manner. Some of the complainants to city council members, such as Erskine Caldwell and Dr. Carol Burrs, have been business people saying, well, these beggars are harassing my customers. When the customer pays for the purchase and walks out the door and to the sidewalk, these men and women are demanding their change, demanding to be fed, or demanding some kind of alms for their own benefit, and bringing a guilt trip, bringing a sense of obligation upon the customer. And the customer is unhappy to be approached there one time, and then a second time, perhaps then a third time. So that business person, businesswoman, or businessman is concerned about losing the trade of that customer on account of these bedraggled visitors. Often the folks begging are visitors here. They're temporarily here. They are nomad wanderers. They are, in the old word, hobos. If they're men, hobos in my mind is always a male. And they're obstreperous and noisy, and they smell bad, and they look so poor that their approach can't help but be viewed by the mark as a threat. And so panhandlers are a threat. Panhandlers are a civil order problem in the city council's mind. And so all of its members but two said last night at the city council meeting that we're going to crack down. We're going to create a barrier between the poor people who are needy. Many of them are really poor. Many of them earn better bread begging than working, and you have all kinds of people with all gradations of good manners or not, right? And probably many of them are not very polite. Probably most of them are innocuous and not persistent, not threatening in their clamor. A few are, and those few have brought demands among city council members for help. And so city council obligingly has written, not knowing when to stop, written an effusive 9-page ordinance with another 20 pages of proofs attached. Those proofs being police reports in a sampling of about 80 of them, showing how varied the problem is, right? And trying to suggest anyway how deep the problem of panhandling is in Chattanooga, the tourist town, the city that relies on tourist dollars, as it likes to say, bringing people from far places to enjoy the aquarium, the views from Lookout Mountain, and many other things. The Civil War battlefields, as they're called, the battlefields commemorating the war to prevent Southern independence, if you will, the Chickamauga, and many other attractions. It's just a lovely city, an environmental city. It has a reputation from the 1980s and 90s of being an innovator city, a green city, thanks to the labors of the likes of Dave Crockett, who was on the city council. And so it has many advantages. It's, of course, the gig city. There are some people who are here on account of business, attending conferences, taking advantage of high-speed internet. Some here to explore the possibility of moving to Chattanooga. I've met quite a few people who have just arrived here and are glad to be here. They've moved businesses to Chattanooga because they like the atmosphere, they like the ways of the people, the grace of the people, and there's a strong Christian interest in Chattanooga. They like that, many of them, and so they're here. And so to protect all these people, the city council, protecting visitors and residents, has passed on first reading with two exceptions, the 2 no votes, the ordinance that prohibits, that bans panhandling, and so it is in my mind, the city council being carelessly benign in its way is just typical of the way Americans do things. Americans are not an independent people. They're not forthrightly spoken, many of them anymore, as some are still in New England. If you go to New York, people are very rude, and I think in many ways there are advantages to being a people who are bold enough to be rude to say something to someone. So if you're a beggar in New York and you harass someone, that person's going to fire back. Okay, here people are they're so gracious in a way that they don't have really a lot of nerve, and so they're oppressed by a beggar, They don't know exactly how to say "get lost," or "please, no, I'm not gonna give you any money. Please leave me alone." They're hard pressed to say that, and so some have complained to city council members whose only tools, really, other than jawboning and showing up at events and cutting ribbons, is to pass laws, pass ordinances that have effectively the power of state law. They are representing a municipal corporation created by the General Assembly, and within its borders, its ordinances have the effect of a law. So you could say they are laws. They are, of course, not statewide. They're covering just this city, and so that is the means the city council has. It has its best weapon to solve problems, right? Its best tool in the toolkit. It's a toolkit that when you open it has one crowbar, and that is the ordinance. And that's what it's done, writing an ordinance. And amid much opposition initially from you might say, the left wing of Christianity, that would be the social gospel people at Mercy Junction Peace and Justice Center. They're folks who favor abortion, who favor gay marriage, who favor public welfare roles, and like they're not too strong on anti-interventionism in foreign countries, but they are quite strong and I think quite sound in their assessment about police brutality and their reluctance to be confident in the function of police. As many, you might say, many conservative Christians, many Christians, let's say in shorthand here on the right side of Christianity, your Baptists, your Presbyterians, they have an implicit confidence in the police state, and they are as people who tend to be Republican, they tend to be, the conservative wing of socialism. They tend to be very much in favor of the matron not wearing an apron as on the left, but the matron wearing the police uniform and the holster. That would be the one on the right. So your conservative part of Christianity favoring the welfare state dressed up as a dad with a gun, and the left, the welfare state with the mother with the apron. Right, that's the two distinctions, in a way not very distinct from the biblical analysis, but still present in the demographic of Chattanooga and Hamilton County here. David Toulis bringing you local economy and the free market. The ordinance is really it's condescending again to you, my listener, because it suggests you can't handle a panhandler on your own. You have to have the police there. And so we're going to write these 9 pages of type, which we'll have to somehow inform the poor people about in a postcard way. Right, we'll have a postcard form of these laws, and deliver them somehow by oral tradition into the streams of walking people with their plastic bags and their backpacks. All right, we'll inform them of what the rules are now that we have 9 pages of type. We have to boil it down. Don't make the type too small. Some of them are older and they don't have reading glasses, so they if they're literate, they don't know how to read the postcard. So that's what's happened, and it is a kind of condescension. You can't handle these people. You can't tell them to go away, to stay away from your business. You can't file your own complaints to an officer for harassment. You have to have an ordinance behind you, and that's what we will do. We on the city council will get an ordinance passed for you. 800-8949, 800-8949. That is the number. If you want to call in on this point or any other, feel free to change the topic. This is David Toulis. Now, one of the people voting for it is Darren Ledford. He is a conservative. He espouses constitutional rhetoric, if you will, and has some belief in constitutional protection, constitutional government. On panhandling is good for the city. And here he is.
Well, I think it's good for the city because it takes what's already established in the central business district, and with a growing city, the growing needs of the city, it's just taking it and taking it citywide. I mean, that's really the end of it.
So the benefits outweigh the concerns of the people who have protested this for 4 weeks now.
Let me tell you something, David. What was interesting is last Tuesday when we were talking about this, at the exact same time during the council meeting, there was someone that was arrested in my district that was causing a tremendous nuisance, going around to several places, and was arrested for aggressive panhandling. Aggressive panhandling is the intent. Getting people services that they need is our complete desire. This enables us at point of contact, which we talked about last week, allowing our officers at point of contact to reach out to people who desperately need help and get them services that they need. And the misconceptions about everyone getting fined $50 is not actually something that's going to happen in every case, and it may not even happen under the current law.
So your hope is that the officer will not view himself as an enforcer at that point, but as a social worker.
Well, that's exactly the intent. I mean, you know, when we were talking about this in all of our strategic planning meetings, David, our intent is to help people. But on the same side of this, there's an aggressive component to this that borders on bullying. There are people being harassed in all of our districts because this city is not just a section here and a section there. We're all experiencing the same things as one city. And there are some problems that we need to address before they get out of hand.
It's Darren Ledford.
Thank you, Darren.
This is David Toulis, and we just heard from Darren Ledford as to why the ban on panhandling has to be expanded across the whole city. He's very favorable of it, and though he's a conservative, he sided with Carol Burrs. Dr. Carol Burrs, one of the sponsors, you might say a social liberal, to pass this ordinance. Also, one of the sponsors is, or the other sponsor of two, is Erskine Oglesby. Now here we have an objection.
I voted against it because I think that
Demetrius
it's just creating barriers, and our mission as a city is to remove barriers. And I most definitely don't want anybody to be cited to court and then possibly given a fine, and that's just, you know, messing up their life. They already having a hard time. And like I say, we all are a paycheck away for being on that corner as well. So I mean, sometimes we got to try to think about how can we actually help people and get them the resources and tools that's needed for them to begin to thrive instead of creating another barrier to hold them down.
That's Demetrius Coonrod, who says that passing the ordinance against which she voted creates barriers, and that the purpose of the city is to reduce barriers and to lower barriers. Now, that is a very gracious perspective. And notice how she is not fearful on behalf of people like you, my listener. She's confident that you can handle a beggar, you, my listener, or your wife, or even your teenage daughter, who might be approached on the sidewalk, or a son running errands after having parked his bike along a parking meter downtown, can handle, or elsewhere, can handle someone who approaches and demands money. The poor people who come asking for money are just opportunists, right? They're asking for money because they're not working, and they'd rather ask than offer, right? They'd rather ask for an alm than offer a service. And that of course, is something that has to change, well, let's say by God's grace and by encouragement of the diaconate, of the Christian church, and of well-meaning people, moral people, even Christian people, who say, well, look, I'm not going to give you the money, but I do need something done. Can you do this for me? And that's how find some menial task perhaps that you can have that person do and offer to pay that person. Now, another objection, another no vote, is from Council Member Jerry Mitchell from Hickson. He says that he would rather he doesn't want to just pass a bill because he can pass a bill. He'd rather eliminate laws because he wants them to be eliminated. He comes across in a statement he made to the press, to me, and to our CBS affiliate TV12, that he doesn't think that there's enough information to vote yes on this ordinance, and he is right. In fact, of all the people I heard speak about this, Jerry Mitchell is the one who's closest to the truth, as I understand it to be. And here he is.
The problems, which we do so often around here. We talk about poverty, and we talk about disparity, and we talk about things that supposedly matter to us. And frankly speaking, we do very little about it. But we're willing to create laws that won't help a thing, in my opinion. That's why I voted the way I voted.
Is there anything that could change that make you want to?
I think there's a couple of things going on here. I don't think we have a good handle on how many panhandlers are aggressive and are actually, cheating the system, so to speak. And let's face it, panhandling is a national profession now. There should be a Department of Labor job code on it, because any city you go to in the country, they're doing it. And, we should be collecting taxes on it probably because they do it so much. But, I don't think we have the ability at this time to speak intelligently on separating out who's homeless and who's not. And until we get there, I'm just not a big believer in passing laws for the sake of passing laws. I'm a big believer in eliminating laws for the sake of eliminating laws if you can do it. And so
Good point.
this one was just one of those things that's, so you're going to find somebody $50. I mean, there's aggressive panhandlers right downtown here, and I know a few of them, and they already owe the court systems over $1,000. They've already been in jail so many times. And you know what? It's a mental health issue, and it's not going to change because of this at all. Not going to solve anything. So, like I said, I greatly respect the two that sponsored it, and they have constituents and business people in their districts that asked for this, and so they felt the need to help them. And I'll do the same thing for my constituents. I'll do the same thing, but I just couldn't go with this one.
This is after the council meeting last night. This is David Toulis. And the question
If we
is,
figure out a way to do a wraparound
to Jerry
service
Mitchell.
thing, if we'd figure out a way to say, are you homeless? Are you not homeless? If we'd figure out a way to accurately get a count on some things and then create some wraparound services, one of which is, what was in the newspaper this morning, we need shelters. We don't have beds. We got people setting up in tents on contaminated land. And so it's like we need to be addressing
vacated.
those type of situations, not figuring out how we can get someone that needs social services into court.
Right. Are you not changing the role of the officer from law enforcer to social worker? Is that wise?
Well, I believe at least I'm biased, of course. I believe our law enforcement officers do have a social work component in what they're doing. I'm just not about putting people in jail. And I believe we train our officers up pretty well to be able to try to help. And I think that they are community police oriented. And so I think that's part of their job. And I think they openly accept that. And I mean, who wants to arrest somebody? I mean, there's probably a few out there that like to do that, but I think the majority of them want to help people.
this is David Toulis. We've been hearing Jerry Mitchell, who is on the city council and voted yesterday against the ordinance 1 of 2. He and Demetrius Coonrod voted no. She says that the city government should be about uniting people, not dividing people. And so she will not erect a police barrier, a barricade between private conversations among the residents and visitors of Chattanooga. That is to say, those especially, well, and all of them in view here, across a line of means, right? Some have means and some don't, and some are begging to have some coin or currency from those that do. This is David Toulis. Love your neighbor and buy local is our slogan here on the David Toulis Show. It's 800-8949, 800-8949. Do call in. I have an interest in chatting in a minute or two with a man named Jack Holland. He is has American Indian blood in him and plays an Indian flute. He says old copies are that have been found are in the thousands of years. And he and others in the music, street music and busking trade have been assured that this ordinance passed by the city council yesterday on first reading does not offend them and does not offend their interest. And so what we have had, I would say, careless benevolence of political figures on the city scene, passing a protection of Chattanoogans and others who can't say no themselves, who can't just firmly say to a beggar, stop, please leave me alone, and use a little firmness in their voice, because people are timid. People are not really local economy enough. They're not lococentric enough to care. They can't say no when they want to say no, and they're intimidated to deal with these people who are occasionally there asking them for money. Jerry Mitchell points out rightly that the data supporting an ordinance, a 9-page ordinance, is very skimpy indeed. There's a police call according to the ordinance's whereases and justifications. One call every 2.5 days about someone involved in panhandling. But it's one call in maybe a dozen days or even more when you consider that the data in the ordinance describes not panhandling acts, not incidents where one person is begging money from another, but other things as well, such as trespassing, public disorder, and suicide, drunkenness, and things like that. Those are the kinds of cases cited in the 457 instances of panhandling in the past 3 1/3 years. Not very much indeed. I'd say a very rare thing to have an aggressive panhandle, very rare. And the only one to have seen that is Jerry Mitchell. And all the other council people, including Darren Ledford, a conservative, and Carol Burrs, the sponsor, a liberal, are just terrified of these few loudmouth people with bad teeth and bad BO. David Toulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nuga Radio.